But let's start this week's show with a look back at Q-School. Took place last week, and we'll go straight into our question of the week, sponsored by Condor Darts. Which tour card winner from Q-School 2024 are you most excited to follow this season?
Well, I think everyone knows who the answer is going to be, and that's because we have a new American on tour. And in fact, there's two Americans who win a 2-year tour card at Q-School, one in the UK and one in European. But we've seen Jules Van Dongen, and it's not that I'm not excited. If he plays what he was doing over the late spring through the summer into early autumn, he's going to do well. You know, when he dropped off the tour, he was provisionally in one of the spots for the World Match Play. He did not play nearly at that level for the last few months. You know, he looked like a tour card player at the end of the year, but he didn't look like one of those players who would qualify for the World Match Play. If he can get back to that, if he can get back to what he was doing, he is possibly the cream of the crop to come out of Q-School this year. But we'll see. I'm going to hold off until we see that. It was a great run at Q-School for him. But I'm excited to see Danny Lauby be on tour, because I think Danny Lauby has all the makings of a very good, very consistent player. You know, if you look of the new tour card holders, he was the 6th highest average of all the players in Q-School to come out and win a tour card, 7th highest overall behind Stefan Belmont, who didn't win a card. He was the highest of the players who had to go through, the 2nd highest of the players who had to go through both stages. Only Matthew Dennett was higher. The other people ahead of him, Steve Lennon, only had to play one day of the 2nd stage to win his card. Dom Taylor came in at the 2nd stage. Robert Grundy came in at the 2nd stage. George Killington came in at the 2nd stage. So he was the 2nd highest average of the players who won a tour card having to start from the very beginning. I really think he has what it takes to succeed on tour. Now, will he hit the ground running? Will it take some time? That's a question. We don't know. And that's the hard part about predicting how new tour card holders that we've never seen before are going to do. But that's what makes it exciting to find out. I do think that Danny Lauby has the makings of a top 64 player. I think he may even have a higher peak than that. Is he a top 32? I don't know. But it will get to know better as we see him. But he's confident. He has a very solid action. He doesn't make mistakes. And as he plays the better players, I think he's going to get better. And I am excited. Who else, though? I think we have to say a player who was in tears at winning a tour card. But if anything, he's tiers above most of the people he played against, and that's Robert Grundy. Again, 3rd highest average of the players at Q-School overall, averaged 93. But just look at that run to winning the tour card on the 2nd day of the UK Q-School. Everyone he played en route either won a tour card, those were the last 3 players he faced, were former tour card holders, those were the first 4 players he played, or a former televised event finalist in the PDC in Fallon Sherrick. So that's a tough run. You know, former tour card holders, James Wilson, Joe Mernon, Scott Taylor he beat. And then in the last 3, James Hurl, Danny Lauby, and Dom Taylor, all of whom won a tour card. So the last 2 of those averaging north of a ton. The final, his opponent averaged 104 in that match. That is a tough run. And other than the match against James Hurl, no one even got him into a last leg decider. What a performance from Robert Grundy. And I think if he plays like he did on Friday at Q-School, if he's able to bring that to the Pro Tour, he will be in the World Championships. He will be qualifying for a couple televised events at the back end of the year, because that was class performance. Of some of the other players, Lucas Venig, a player that we talked about, or I think we talked about before UK Q-School. Neither of us had him on our list, but was definitely in the long list of players we were considering to win tour cards. Not surprised to see him win it at all. I don't think we saw the best of him at Q-School, only the 21st highest average of the players to get through the tour card. The 11th lowest, if you'd rather think of it that way. But I don't think that's anywhere near his best game. He did very well on the Challenge Tour last year. I think it might take some time, but Germany keeps producing very good players, and I think he's one that has more pedigree than the other 2, and I think I expect him to do well on the Pro Tour. And I'll just quickly say a couple others. Andy Bottens, obviously, as the WDF World Champion, only the 2nd person to win a world title in another organization and immediately go to Q-School and win the card. The other, of course, being Glenn Durrant. Is he going to be Premier League champion in 15 months? I'm not going to say that, but he definitely was the best player in the WDF last year. But Jelle Claesson, semifinalist there, getting back his tour card, also among that list. I'm curious to see how he does. And I'll say one more name back over at the UK Q-School. Third time coming through Q-School. Still has never qualified for the World Championships. But George Killington, I think, is now ready to take that next step. Just narrowly missed out last year on qualifying for the World Championships. He looked like one of those players who needed a 3-year tour card, kind of like Jules Van Dongen, kind of like Radek Zagansky, both of whom won back their cards. Well, George Killington won his back, and actually, other than Steve Lennon, had the highest average of any of the players to win back their card. And I think he's now ready to take that next step because he's been improving, and now he has 2 more years to kick on from what was already a very good season in 2023.
Some good picks there, and a few of the guys that you mentioned at the end there are in our poll that we've got on Twitter at the moment, so you can have your say. We've put in there Andy Barton's the WDF World Champion. He's got 22%. Leighton Bennett 46%, Jelle Claesson 12%. So do go and have a vote on the poll. Let us know who you think is the player that you're most looking forward to following on the tour this year. And many of our listeners have got in touch already. Rob Everington saying Danny Lauby, I am Vinci saying Barton's, Tricol, Toretta, Lauby and Kilosaurus, Halpai Puha. Ryan Rossi has gone with Willie Borland and Mr. Pure Darts. When it comes to Q-School every year, we get excited about the players that have won their cards, about to go on the tour and mix it with those professionals. And let's just quickly rewind back 12 months. And this question, we were all talking about Corey Cadby, weren't we? He come through Q-School, and after that day, we didn't see him throw another dart in the PDC. And another rule that's been brought in since we last spoke is that if you're inactive for a whole season, then your tour card is going to be taken away. And that's what's happened to Corey Cadby from the class of 2023's Q-School. But the class of 2024, there is a really interesting mix of players in there. And one of the things that most stands out for me is some of the players on that list that have been tipped for a little while now to win a card at Q-School. And this is the year, or this is the week rather, that it's all come together for them. And one of them, you mentioned Danny Lauby from the UK Q-School, and a player from the European Q-School that most stands out in that category is Thibaut Tricol. And at one point, I think both players, Tricol and Lauby, they've been carrying the hopes of a nation on their shoulders, probably more so Thibaut Tricol, because there's more strength in depth in the States, and we have seen more players from America get onto the tour and others do well, like Stowe Bunce getting to the Grand Slam quarterfinals last year. But in Thibaut's case, we had him on just before Ali Pali made that debut at the PDC World Championship, and we spoke about Q-School, and he said he wanted to try and not put too much pressure on himself going to Q-School this year. And maybe that's what has let him down in the past, judging by his results last week. We saw it went down to the final day for him, and he needed a run. There was a nervy game in the last 16, locked at 4-all, won the last 2 legs, last dart in hand, hitting the double both times, and then the next game, the point that would get him his card, played a lot better, 6-0, absolutely flew out the traps, won that game. And he'd be in my picks of players that I'm looking forward to following, because he's someone that we've been expecting to get on the tour at some point in the not so distant future, and this is the year that he's done it. The other two I'm going to add in there are 2 of the players in our poll. I've gone with Leighton Bennett and Andy Barton as my other 2. Barton's the Lakeside champion, we all know, a very talented player. He's going to be a great addition to the tour, and I do expect to see him hit the ground running fairly quickly this year. And the other one, Leighton Bennett, just a word on him, almost been the forgotten young man in darts a little bit. I was at the Lakeside in 2019. I was there the day he won that World Youth title, 13 years of age, the 1-2-1 on the ball to win it, doing the Dean Winstanley, almost running off the stage. And I had a brief chat with him after that for this podcast. If you want to go and listen back to that, it was a while ago, but he's still not the finished article, but you wouldn't expect him to be at the age of 18. But the ability is there. We saw it in flashes at Q-School, and we saw it as he got over the line and won a tour card outright. So, yeah, he's another player I'm looking forward to following his progress over these next 2 years as well.